Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. This is episode 64. Thanks for joining us. We talk about everything from cooking to the latest, cookware, because we want to.
Yeah, basically, this is nothing more than a cooking podcast, if you've never tuned in before. Cooking with Chris and Andre.
And we're super glad you joined us. I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
Again, we got through the hard part pretty quickly.
I'm doing my best to not, intentionally throw you off, I guess, because I was on it wasn't even really intentional. I thought that I had time to get my little joke in, and then you were already ready to roll, and so I just threw off the whole thing. So now I'm just like, just shut up, let him get through the first part,
and then we can
He'll give you a chance to say something, Chris. Just wait your turn.
So what's funny is I hate to be late, as we saw going to Pure Soul.
That was a fun experience.
Yeah.
I had a great time hanging out with you guys. The car ride was also fun.
Yeah.
Andre missing his turn and then having to be 3 minutes late when he wasn't even really late. It was just... So yeah, for those of you who aren't from, I guess, around here or aren't vegan and aren't in the know, there's a restaurant, Pure Soul, that's in Durham. That opened, I think, a couple of months ago, kind of soft open, but they had their official grand opening was this weekend. And so Andre and I took our lovely significant others with us to go try it out. Really good, Southern comfort food. I had the chicken drumsticks with rice, mac and cheese. What was the other thing I got? I don't remember. There was something else I thought. It was all really good.
The sweet potato fries, right?
Oh yeah, sweet potato fries. Those were okay. They looked really good, but by the time I got to them, they were just kind of meh.
They were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the chicken sandwich, a fried chicken sandwich. It was actually pretty good. Everything was, it was Southern soul food. So, Eastern Southern soul food would be my take. It was pretty good. I could definitely see going there for brunch. So, definite shout out to Pure Soul. Super glad you're in the circuit now. That's what I call places where I will frequent and go grab something to eat. So.
Yeah, that's on the list.
Yeah,
that's what we say. It's on the list.
Speaking of restaurants, Taco Bell is trying to.
Okay, wait, but Taco Bell's not a restaurant. You can't say "speaking of restaurants" and then say Taco Bell.
You're right, but. Everything you just said was true, but
I've never correct you in public.
Yeah, but that was more like a quick fact check. They're actually trying to go and create their own. Let me start with this. They have a pretty large vegan and vegetarian following. So every time they change their menu and they remove something, people obviously get upset by it. So it's pretty interesting to see they're trying to, get ahead of Beyond Meat and see how that works out for them.
Yeah. I guess it was really only a matter of time before some of those larger corporations decided they didn't want to pay the exorbitant price of Beyond Meat or Impossible, in order to have it. And so why not go out and figure out how to kind of make your own or grow your own. It's plant-based, right?
It's all plant-based.
It's funny because I do remember that before I was vegan and I started hearing about Beyond Meat and the Impossible Meat, and I'm just like, that's gross. I don't want my meat grown in but then, now it's wait, that makes way more sense. That's way less gross than eating regular meat.
Well, when you think about it, for example, TVP, you'll find it in canned chili. It's in a lot of the stuff that schools use, which which is interesting. So I think for a ground beef substitute, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That may open them up, and the flavoring is not that far off. So I'm not, and this is not nothing against Impossible or Beyond. It's just a matter of, from a restaurant's point of view, if you can keep your food costs down, you can definitely not run out of the product. So a couple months ago, we went to Pizza Hut because they had I think it was the Beyond topping for the pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And they were out. So it was like, for like a couple months we splurged and would get it was actually a pretty good pizza, but then they were just out. So,
So what good is it?
Yeah.
If you can't get it, right?
Right. So I think that trend is going to continue. It's just a matter of, how do restaurants pivot to what the consumers are looking for?
Yeah. It's, and it's interesting because obviously everybody has their own kind of taste. And I think, flavor expectation plays a large part in it. Like what you kind of expect something to taste like. I think I told you, and I may have mentioned it last week, I ordered a new cookbook called Foodgasm. And I was really excited to try some of these recipes. And the first 2 or 3 recipes that I tried in the book, I was just like, what is this lady thinking? The fried rice recipe that she had called for the Chinese 5 spices blend. And part of it is just that I cannot stand anise, the black licorice,
right?
Flavor. It grosses me out, and it's heavy on that. But then it had I don't know, just everything that was nutmeg or something that was just kind of sweet, and it was for a fried rice, and it just, I don't know, we took a few bites and we were just no, and just scraped the rest of it off into the trash can. I felt bad. I hate wasting food, but I'm not gonna eat this. This is gross. I'm trying to remember what the other thing was that we made that was not very good. But we did finally find, we tried the queso recipe.
Right.
And that was good. The quesadillas that we made with it were really good. But even then, we ended up changing things about the recipe.
Right.
To try, because I've just gotten to the point now where I'm like this is the 3rd time in the last week I've found a vegan recipe where they call for cashews, but it doesn't say to soak your cashews before you put them in the blender. It's just throw your unsalted raw cashews in the blender with your ingredients, and it's okay, first off, not everybody has a freaking Vitamix, right?
Right.
Some people have regular blenders, and second, even then, you still should soak that stuff. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this really awful
powder.
Chunky,
it's more of a powder than, right?
It is, but even then, it can't really pulverize beyond a certain point.
Well, the viscosity won't be right.
It's just all sorts of wrong. But so I don't know. I'm still really on the fence about this cookbook. The pictures look great. All the food looks like it would be amazing.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, and then I tried it, I'm just ugh.
It's because you have standards.
Yeah, that's, Christy and I were joking. We were obviously we would just have a much more refined palate than this. But
But you're not wrong. When you think about it that way, there are some things I'm just that doesn't sound halfway, good.
And again, I understand everybody has their own, taste buds and their own, their things that they like and don't like.
Right.
But some of these things that are just that's not right.
That's beyond questionable.
Yeah. I feel you ever see that the Kaylin Reacts guy? It's that's how I feel when I'm reading these recipes. I'm girl, what are you doing? Oh no, she didn't. She not gonna put that in there.
Oh man, that is funny. That's super funny. Well, we're going on vacation and pretty soon, and one thing I was thinking about was, because it keeps coming up, right? And probably both of our extended friend groups, people, they look at vegan or plant-based as this monolith, and it just blows my mind to this day. It's so I was curious, as to what you thought about, because I know what I think. I'm just I just kind of want to hear what are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts in terms of people viewing it as like an all or nothing, or like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to some degree, like I never really understood. I'd never really heard of plant-based versus vegan. Like I knew, vegan and pescatarian and vegetarian and all that good stuff.
Ditto.
But I hadn't really heard of plant-based until I started getting into it. And, I feel like to some degree plant-based is more maybe diet focused, not like in terms of health, but just like, I'm focusing specifically on what I'm eating and kind of, and that. And I feel like vegan
is lifestyle.
It's both that, and I feel like there is maybe a little bit more focus on like the animal part of it, where it's like, oh, we got to protect the animals and, I can't harm the bees. And I say that as somebody that tries not to consume honey because it's like, whatever. But I also kind of make fun of myself for it because I do realize that sometimes... Like sometimes I'm like, I mean, they're bees, but at the same time I'm like, okay, well, it's not my decision, like it shouldn't. Ultimately, I don't feel like it should be my decision whether or not I'm like, well, this animal is okay to, exploit, but these animals are not. And I don't know. I mean, do I feel bad when I kill a spider in my house? Like,
I hope not.
Sometimes.
Oh, really?
Helena's gotten on this kick lately where she wants me to catch them and let them go outside.
What is it, a Pokemon?
No, I mean, like, that'd be cool, though. That sounds like a really great new, like, home pesticide product. You gotta catch them all. Just like these tiny little balls that you throw at spiders in your house. You hope that you catch them.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like we've talked about before, I don't want to mistreat animals, but I think the vegan, I think veganism to me is more of a lifestyle change, and so that's probably why I threw that out there. And I think we should respect life, and I'm not opposed. Like my biggest problem is the way we farm and raise our food. So that's what I always worry about. It's not so much that. So
anyways, question for you, like leather products, right? You don't have an issue with that?
I'd buy leather boots tomorrow.
Okay.
I'd go buy a pair of Timbs tomorrow. Wouldn't even flinch. And I know but again, that goes back to the industry of farming, right? So you think that the leather industry is more humane? No. No, I guess my point is, if we got to a point where things are priced versus the actual resource, not that we would inflate the resource and create a false demand, right? So as opposed to paying $170 or $180 for a pair of Timberlands, if they cost like $320, well, that's probably one less pair I'm going to buy over said time frame. And I was thinking, like, when we go on vacation, it's like, well, we're going out of the mainland, so we're going to Puerto Rico, obviously. But the seafood there is fresh caught, so it's not like in America where came more than likely from China. So I might, and there's not much of I don't know yet because I haven't really been to Puerto Rico, not eating meat, but I'll see, but. In the back of my mind, I'm like, and plan B may be like probably fish every now and then, because I know it's not sourced from, 6 continents over just for no apparent reason. Like, we have fish on the continent.
Salmon farm.
Yeah. It's like, what are we doing, guys? So, but
there's
I
big
think
money in salmon farming.
Well, I'm sure there is, but
I've been thinking about getting into it.
Is that a TV reference or something?
No, I just.
I was like, but you're setting me up. Like, I haven't watched that show.
I'm always setting you up. That's the problem, Andre. Or is that's my secret?
That's your secret.
Which one is it?
Oh man. So I think that I often reflect on the whole diet thing, and I think it's a matter of health. And I think that, as we talked about before, if your weight makes you unhealthy, change your diet and get, do things to fix that. It's not about your size, but if you're unhealthy, stop being unhealthy. I think also for me, like heart disease and all these other things, diabetes, I do believe the science that a lot of the foods we eat are causing these diseases. Like that is not a mystery to me. So my beef with seafood is I don't know where it comes from. So, but I do believe the food that we're buying is probably making us sicker.
Yeah, I mean, and I see. I think like even with fresh caught stuff,
Right.
I have concerns just about, like ocean pollutants and all the crap that we're, flooding out there. And I mean, I guess to some degree, even plants and vegetables,
Yeah, I was going to
fruits
say.
and vegetables and stuff can absorb that too. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't really an issue for me because I never ate seafood before.
Right.
So the occasional shrimp.
It's a newfound love for me. Like, remember I told you I just found sausage and then I stopped eating meat, so it's kind of sad. But I can get like vegan and plant-based sausage, so I'm happy again because that was really sad. I'm like, I just found this thing. Like,
Yeah.
I can't.
See,
take
I
it
still
away.
haven't found like a really consistent sausage or bacon substitute. That was the other thing I tried. That's what it was. She has this bacon, veggie bacon, and it's using zucchini, like strips of zucchini that you soak in this marinade and then fry up. And I don't know, like it just did not. No,
I've seen a couple people do carrots. I haven't tried it yet.
I've seen carrots. I've tried tempeh. I haven't tried tofu yet because tofu is hard to get it that thin without it just completely disintegrating.
There's a guy, something, gosh, I wish I could remember his name, on YouTube, and he does some pretty unique recipes. He's got a bacon out of carrot recipe.
Yeah.
I'll look it up and try to find it, but I've been meaning to try it. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but bacon is one of those things.
Oh yeah, it's just bacon and sausage are the two things that I haven't really found a substitute for that I can consistently enjoy. It's like occasionally I'll try something and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good, and it's like good once, and then the next time I go to taste it for whatever reason, I'm like, that's not what I remember it tasting like last time. So I don't know. Maybe I've had COVID like 15 times this year and I just didn't realize it. But yeah, I would love to find a, fairly simple, like at home recipe to be able to do it. Seitan is the one. So there was Upton Naturals, does a lot of the seitan stuff, and they had a bacon that I tried that was amazing. And I have never been able to find it anywhere ever since that one time.
Yeah.
Like I think I got it at Thrive Market or something like that, but they were sold out of it immediately afterwards and never got it back. It's been a while, so I probably need to go look again and see if I can find it because but yeah, like that I don't know, bacon was one of my consistent things when I was a meat eater. Like I loved me some bacon. Give me a BLT all day. And that's like I've done some avocado, in place, and obviously it's not bacon, but it's like veggie sandwiches and stuff. I've gotten very comfortable, with like kind of that being more than sustainable.
My sandwich game is like probably not fallen off, but I don't eat a lot of sandwiches anymore. Probably I've gotten pretty used to cooking something. So that's kind of good. But again, it's something that you just kind of grow into and get used to, if I'm being honest, So for anybody out there looking to understand the, I think it's more of a social question than an actual question. Like, and it keeps coming up. Like I sent an article to you. It keeps coming up. What's the difference between being a vegan and plant-based? It's literally like, I think it probably pivots more to a lifestyle change, like the whole encompassing of the animal's life cycle, as opposed to, I think for me, I'm more of a plant-based based on like health, long-term health, but still don't mistreat animals. I think that's fundamentally wrong. But I'll
Didn't
buy a
I
pair
send
of
you the
boots.
meme that had like the follow your heart and all the coconut ice cream, and it's like I'm
cheese
vegan
and-
for the animals and not my health starter pack.
I think it's hilarious because it's so true, right?
It is. I mean, like I've got a freaking diet cheesecake in my fridge that stuff's pretty good. Every once in a while, it's just like gotta get me some sweets.
But I always say I cheat with cheese every now and then. So for me, it's like I eat a lot healthier than I did almost 2 years ago. That's all I'll say that much. And yeah, sometimes I go places I'm like, that's got cheese on it, but it's gonna get eaten today.
Yep. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, if you're, oh man, I miss talking about sports, but nothing I have for like I've been reading.
It's all bad.
It's all bad. It's all terrible.
I mean, so like, I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but the whole Super League.
Oh,
just like. I was reading a New York Times article that was basically outlining the whole timeline of everything falling apart. Very interesting.
Well, between FIFA and the EU, I guess it was never going to happen. And that's sad and unfortunate, but and I know we talked last week about how mixing up the leagues makes it a little bit it makes it interesting. Adidas has got this new ad campaign where they're talking, they've got the first South African black team captain, and there's basketball players with these unique stories. And I know what they're doing. it's really like they're trying to highlight some of the black athletes, and but they also picked two sports where soccer not so much. The top players in soccer aren't necessarily all black, but it's not a sport, the top players, that's dominated by white people. So, but I get what they're doing, and I really respect that. But they, just highlighting some of those black players. And it's very tastefully done. Like, you almost have to really pay attention to the commercial to figure out what they're doing. And I respect that because I hate stuff being, shoved in my face. But again, back to the Super League between the EU and FIFA, it was never going to happen. I guess they stopped it. It could have happened, but it's just really weird. I'm not happy about it.
I can tell.
I'm really I'm frustrated.
I mean, I didn't really have a horse in the race because I don't watch that much soccer one way or the other. I guess I kind of understood what those teams were looking at, but from what I gathered, this is also something that's been talked about for a while now, or like kind of always threatened, and then the lower teams are like, here, we'll give you these concessions if you'll stay, and blah blah blah, and then the big teams are like, all right, fine. I just think if you were going to do that sort of thing, it needed to be better planned than what they obviously had. I think they ended up rushing it because as soon as word got out, they knew that there was going to be a push against it. Right. But I don't think that they expected the negative push that they got from both the players and the fans. Because the fans mostly in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I think they ultimately really cared about. But yeah. I don't know. It didn't really affect me that much, so I was paying attention more just out of kind of the cloak and dagger aspects of it. I always find that stuff to be very interesting. Where it's like the guy from Italy who like the president of the Juventus club, who was like best friends with the head of the UEFA, or like he's his godfather to his son or something like that, and he would like kept telling him like, no, it's fine, nothing's going on, it's all just rumors, you don't have anything to worry about. And then eventually just like turned off his phone and like as they're texting and calling back and forth. And it's just like, and then the guy finds out like, oh shit, it's all real, it's really
It's like
going
boom
down. Yeah. And so it's just, like, that dude like was like, yeah, the guy from UEFA was pissed, which I mean I get, right? They looked at it as a huge threat to their livelihood, whether or not that was really accurate. But if nothing else, like they like being in charge. They don't want somebody else going around them and feeling like they have this other league that they have to, contend with or put up with or, meet with concessions.
I don't think it's that it was ever that big of a deal. I think they kind of I think there was backroom like influence on that decision to kind of derail it. So, and I'm
definitely.
like the fans would have been okay, because I think the key thing for that, if you take the top tier teams out and you let the other leagues or the other, that other league survive, right? You can actually see some players get some exposure. That makes the game better. Most of these players are going to go back to their national teams anyway, right? To tie it into the U.S. men's team, it was a U23 team. So when I said the B team, first of all, I shouldn't have said that. I think that, looking back on it, it's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah, way to go, Andre.
I mean, I had to think about it. My neighbor's daughter plays for she's probably U20 now. She plays for Carolina and also the, I want to say U20 team. So that means eventually she'll get to a point where she's, able to participate. Hopefully it'll be kind of huge in the Olympics. So I had to, when I said that and I thought about it, I was like, well, that's probably not fair to younger players to call them the B League. But they made some F League mistakes. So
you don't feel too bad.
I don't feel too bad. I think
not too bad.
Yeah, when you peel back the covers on that whole story, there's a lot of systematic things that led to them losing. So they have less practice time. The MLS won't release players in the right amount of time to practice. The coach is only there; it's a part-time gig for the most part. So there are systematic things.
It's U.S. soccer.
That's
the underlying issue.
Yeah, well, yeah. I like, part of me doesn't want to like admit to that, but it's true. That's
unfortunately, yeah. Like that's right. Just, and I don't know. It's disappointing because I think we've seen when we've had good World Cup teams, right? Like, or good Olympic teams, Americans will get into soccer, but I just. The rest of the year, we don't really, or the rest of the 2 years in between, we don't really seem to give a crap. Even with all the local soccer stuff going on here in the U.S., there just doesn't, there's been more buy-in now than I think there ever has been before, which is great. And so hopefully it's more on like a growing trajectory.
It's for women's soccer, though, because the women's team.
Some of it, but I think like a lot of the FC teams and stuff like that.
Right.
The men's teams have started to grow in some popularity.
Well, okay, I'll give you that, but I think a lot of, I still think that when the women win, even in friendlies, like the sports world goes crazy, right?
The women, yes. Like if the men's team was run, I don't want to say the same way that the women's team is run, but like if we had a similar level of competence, I think in the way that they've approached the women's team.
Well, be careful, like pay-wise too?
No, obviously. I just mean in terms of like their ability to have the talent to go out and participate.
That's the key word. I think,
you can have all of the strategy you want, but if you don't have the horses to go run the races, like it's ultimately not really going to matter. And I just think at the end of the day, that's where the U.S. has come up short kind of consistently. Is it seems like we don't have the same depth of talent that a lot of the other leagues do. We have some great stars over the years, but it just on the men's side, it hasn't been deep enough, consistent enough, especially over the last, 10, 15
Right.
years here. It feels like it's fallen off a cliff, more or less, since, like the Freddie Adu, end of the Landon Donovan era. Like that was pretty much it. That's the last time that I remember. I mean, wasn't that the last time that we were really like in the World Cup?
No.
Did we go one time after that?
Yeah, with Dempsey and Pulsnik and Altidore. I mean, so there's like it all depends. I think the key thing you mentioned was the depth, right? And when you look at women's soccer, you probably see a couple levels deep on the bench. When you look at men's soccer, you don't see that as much.
Do you want a great analogy?
Sure. This is better than my Interstate 40 analogy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Scav's better. First off, it's NC State, so we can start there. It's already better. But NC State men's and women's basketball programs.
Gosh.
Just look.
Sure.
Give me a second, right? Okay. So
no. Let me take a beat, because in my mind I'm kicking myself because I knew
you knew like this is where I was coming.
I think I ignored it for a second.
Yeah, you were kind of like.
Okay, go ahead.
So the women's team has now developed like a significant amount of depth on the roster,
right?
Of just like very talented players. And after winning the ACC back-to-back seasons and then going out, I think before they made it to the Sweet 16 or maybe in the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, they added like 2 or 3 transfer players that were, I think, a rookie of the year in the SEC and a player of the year in the SEC.
Right.
So it's that like the rich get richer kind of thing, but it's like they just keep adding more and more depth. And the problem that the men's team has had consistently is it's like we lose one player and the whole team starts to kind of tank. I mean, that happened this last season and the team did way better than most people expected with like Devin Daniels going down. But you have to be able to have that next player. You can't have that huge drop off, right? I mean, that's where I think Carolina was so strong for so long. Yeah. Their second 5 could beat most starting fives on other teams. And so there wasn't that big drop off when the bench guys came in to relieve. And if anything, like you had some guys that were probably just as good, if not better.
Carolina's always had the ability to have like those rotations be pretty clean. And you're right. I agree. And I'm not here to crap on State today, because I think that the State's problem is a management issue. It's not the lack of ability or talent. I think they've struggled with what that looks like, right? I think they recruit only for one or 2 years, if I'm being super honest, right? So that they may not go and get that super dope freshman that's probably not going to leave in 3 years. They may get somebody they think is going to be great for a year or two. And I think that's like one of the criticisms I have for NC State's basketball program. The women's team is not like that, but of course, you don't have the early departures in women's basketball that you do in men's basketball.
Right.
So there's a lot of it's a complex issue in sports, right? And the parallels between the two are kind of like, yeah, but it's the same. It's technically the same school, same program. What's the problem?
Right.
Yeah, it's a quick problem to solve. Stop recruiting for a year.
But you do point to something that I think is really interesting, because college basketball, men's college basketball used to be that same way, because yes, there was the lure of the NBA, but the money wasn't so significant. Right. It wasn't like getting $25-30 million signing bonus when you get drafted in the lottery like it is now. And so guys would stay 3-4 years consistently, right? I mean, you'd have guys that would sit on the bench for 3 years and then play their senior year, and that was it. But
right,
the whole time they were learning. I mean, they would sub in, but then we're starting as seniors, that sort of thing. And that's, I think, again, like you see a lot more of that in the women's game because you don't have those early departures. Although, I mean, the women's game and the men's team or game this year are dealing with a huge transfer flux because of the one-time transfer rule, which I don't know. The whole thing with the transfers, like, there's something about that, come in, spend 4 years, be with the program, kind of serve your role, and then hopefully move on to bigger and better things. But but I also understand kids signing on somewhere, the coach leaves, now they're stuck with somebody that they didn't sign on to play with. Why should they have to stay there? Like, what obligation do they have to that school beyond, the opportunity that they were given? That means that they got to stick it out for 4 years. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't necessarily hate that, but it's been like a lot. It's like every headline I'm seeing, I'm like, wow, it's a lot. So I also read that Mac Brown is moving like within a mile of the practice facility at UNC.
Is that so he can ride his rascal over there?
I have no clue, dude. But I just think that the insanity of college sports, it's only going to get worse. The coaches are making a lot of money while the kids are scraping by, which is still, I think, just wrong.
I feel like the college sports bubble has to burst at some point.
But how? When you have, like, the last 4 years, it's been a non-predicted team winning like championships or titles.
But it's not about that. I think it's more about the litigation. I think, or legislation that is ultimately going to burst that bubble. That once enough of these cases make it far enough and start kind of setting precedent, and then other players come forward and start filing lawsuits and that sort of thing, I feel like there will have to be a change to at least, the ability for players to earn money off of their likeness.
Right.
I think ultimately it could implode the entire game of college sports for football and basketball on the men's side. Like, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we essentially end up with a separate but somehow related like sports entity, to essentially remove the necessity of like student athletes and that sort of thing, that it becomes more of an amateur team sponsored by your local college kind of deal.
Really?
I don't know. I think that would be kind of interesting.
Like, I just got really complicated. Like, that's like a whole thing. I'm like, wow.
But I say just blow it up and we'll start over and see what happens.
But you have the minors, right? So it goes back to what we talked about. Well, you do
in some sports, but not in football.
You do. You have arena football in not a lot of states. You have Canada.
Really? Okay.
I'm saying there are options, basically. You could... I know the Raleigh Dragons were a thing for a while, right? So those leagues die, though. That's the thing. So there have been
and they're not generally a feeder to the NFL. I mean, the closest was probably the AAF or whatever the AFL. That wasn't the AFL, but
the XFL.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the XFL I think had a chance,
right?
But it was the other one. It wasn't the USFL, because that was the one back in the 80s. But they had that other startup league that came right before the XFL, and they had started paying players, and then they ran out of money. Who was it? It was Dundon,
McMahon.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Forked over a bunch of money to try and, whoever the guy. No, it was the guy that was the Panthers, is who it was.
Yeah. It's doable. I mean, it's really doable.
Exactly. I think there's the problem that you run into is football.
It's TV licensing.
Well, yeah, like you got to have the TV. You got to have somebody that's going to carry the TV package.
Right. That's the problem.
But there's plenty of. I feel like there's a lot of. I mean,
you go local. You don't try to. You go local first, right? Or regional, or actually regional. And you grow just like the MSL did. You don't have to have like primetime games. You go local, regional packages, and you start out somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you have to do on the TV side of it.
Yeah, but that's where you get most of the money to afford a good majority. Like you're probably not going to get in ticket sales for a while. If you look at the Courage. They sell out most of their games. Like and I'm always late, and I've been trying to like just buy season tickets just so I can go watch them. But it's like if you're trying to go like 2-3 weeks out, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I think there's room for improvement, but it's, if we take away sport, like the word sport from athletics, right? If we pull that out and people they're only paying for a paycheck, and the team management, it's only trying to get that next dollar. Athletes they're not that unique anymore. They're just another commodity, or actually just like a non-reusable resource. And, I just think that gets super complicated. So like the fans won't enjoy the sport anymore. Like for example, the Raiders, they went to Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. Who won there? The owners of the team. Nobody else. The fans didn't win. The athletes didn't win.
Yeah,
look
but
at the Chargers.
so like
look at the Chargers.
Okay, the Chargers I think is a much better example. Like the Raiders were trying to stay in Oakland, and they couldn't get a deal for a stadium. And even then, with the Raiders, I think because they'd moved around a bunch before, when they first went to LA, they still had fans in Oakland. When they left LA, they still had fans in LA. And I think they still have fans in LA and Oakland now, even though they're in Vegas. And so for the Raiders, like, I don't think it really mattered ultimately. I don't know. Like, yeah, I think the local fans lose, but Vegas isn't that far ultimately from Oakland. You can grab a Southwest flight for like $60. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
like, you could go do that. That's not the end of the world. Granted, like San Diego to Los Angeles is not, across the continent or anything like that.
Right.
But the issue there was that the Chargers had been in San Diego forever, and they had no fans there when they left, and nobody wanted them in Los Angeles. Like,
Right.
So that seemed like such a lose-lose across the board. Like the team lost, the fans lost, the NFL lost. Like, do you really need two teams in LA? Has that done you any good whatsoever? Like, no. And I mean, I don't know if you've read anything about or heard anything about like all the dysfunction in the Spanos family that owns the Chargers, but like, so the dad who originally, had bought it years ago passed away. So then it was the trust that was running it amongst all the siblings, right? And other family members that had bought in. And Dean Spanos, I believe, one of the sons got put in charge of basically running the team. He's effectively running it into the ground now, and still owes the NFL a $500 million relocation fee, by the way.
Good. That's good.
To move to LA and share a stadium with Stan Kroenke, who's just I'm sure a delightful landlord. But yeah, I mean, so basically his sister is now suing the trust to say that they have to force him to sell the Chargers because the team is costing the trust money that it's supposed to be generating them profit, because he doesn't know what he's doing, essentially he's operating it into the ground.
So I guess sports is in for a day of reckoning. It's kind of like Jake Paul continuing to get press. The only thing good about Jake Paul, like recently, is Pete Davidson. Just ripping him apart. I just think that
was great. I mean, again, like I feel like that was such. I don't watch a lot of boxing, right? I don't watch a lot of UFC. I used to watch a lot of professional wrestling. So I know a dive when I see one. And I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Jake Paul did not knock anybody out. He hit somebody in the face who fell down and said, "Pay me my money."
Well, it was a $1:20 fight. So it was like, I'm like $1:20, like a minute 20 get knocked out. B, come on. I don't know. Like I don't know anything about Jake Paul. I just know the internet does not like this kid.
No, that he likes it that way. The truth be told, like this is just It's
Is it a
just
money grab?
it's another internet, persona where let me be a giant douchebag that the whole world can hate on, but they'll pay money to hate on me, right? They'll pay money to see the opportunity for me to get knocked out. And then they'll pay even more money next time when it doesn't happen this time. And that's all he's doing. I mean, it's just he'll keep finding bums. And I shouldn't say bums. He'll keep finding people who are not boxers, like people who aren't even at his level. And he is not, like, I'm not saying he's nothing. I would not step in the ring with Jake Paul. Like,
he's a big kid.
He's a big kid. He's been training for boxing. Like, he obviously can throw a punch, but I think if you put him against any legitimately trained boxer who's been, not out of the sport for years and wasn't,
or even a real like a striker MMA fighter.
Sure,
like, that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Not a judo or a
wrestler.
Yeah,
like a wrestling kind of guy.
Yeah,
somebody who isn't known for his boxing prowess,
right?
To begin with, like, I mean, and I think I made this comment when we went out. Like, dude showed up looking like me. Like, I swear, if I took my shirt off and took a picture, and like cut it off from the neck up, you would not be able to tell me which one was me and which one was the dude fighting in a boxing ring.
Yeah,
and we're the same age, so I mean, like,
it only gets worse from there. I just think that it's like, come on, sports, you can do better.
I mean, but that's just it. That wasn't even sports. Like, that was pure entertainment. Like, I was talking about wrestling before. This was Snoop Dogg putting on a concert. This was Pete Davidson doing his stand-up bit. Like, this is the new, like, we can't just have a sporting event anymore, right? It's got to be all this production around it, because,
well, the production value is crap if it's only a minute and 20-second.
But that's just it. That's why it had to be everything else, right?
Right.
Because if you paid $50 for that pay-per-view, right?
You're pissed.
And you only got, and literally all you got was a minute 25 fight. Like, you'd be calling up and throwing a fit. Dang it.
You know what I am excited for?
What's that?
Shang-Chi.
Yes. That looks really good. I'm super excited for that as well.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that looks dope, man.
Especially now that I finished Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, speaking of Falcon. Oh, all right, so all three of those guys, my wife is like, first of all, we're watching.
Wait, all three of those guys?
Yeah, so I can't remember the guy that plays Shang-Chi, but
okay.
we actually watched Kim's Convenience on Netflix.
I thought you were going to say that John Walker was on that list. And
I
was
no, sir.
Me and your wife had to have a talk.
Yeah, I know, right? So you know exactly where I was going, right?
Oh, I know exactly what you were going with that, because we've had this conversation before.
God, I'm like, you guys. I'm glad that all of them have jobs, but like, the fantasy of my entertainment is being ruined by my wife saying, "Oh, he's hot." I'm like, what are we doing here?
How insecure are you?
I'm super insecure.
I know, it's so cute.
It's like crap, man.
So you can't enjoy any of that now because of that.
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
We struggled through Aquaman, with Jason Momoa shirtless the whole freaking movie. So,
did I tell you I watched that?
Aquaman finally?
Yeah. So the same weekend that we watched Justice League, afterwards we went back and watched Aquaman. I say afterwards, like, Aquaman didn't come out after Justice League. The whole timeline for DC movies makes no sense to me. But it was better than I thought it was going to be. Again, this is another one of those where I swear, because I went into it thinking this is going to be the worst movie since Avatar, which, by the way, awful movie. Can we just just garbage. Yeah. But I went into that with really high expectations because everyone's like, "Oh, it's amazing! Look at these blue people." Like, okay.
Haven't you seen the Smurfs?
Yeah, I could just go watch the Blue Man Group. But yeah,
which, by the way, is a terrible show. I saw it in Vegas.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, don't get it. But anyway,
my roommate auditioned to be part of the Blue Man Group at one point. He was really He thought he was gonna.
What? Now I'm very sorry I derailed you.
No, it's okay. I don't even remember what were you talking about.
But Aquaman.
Oh yeah, just Aquaman. It was better than I thought it was going to be. It's just another one of those movies where again, I'm not saying it was good, right? But I'm saying
it was passable.
It was an enjoyable 2 hours. Like there were plenty of parts where I'm like, that's ridiculous, or really, guys, that's what we're doing. But unlike some movies, there were moments where it didn't, like, the whole plot didn't pivot on that exactly.
Right.
It was like, okay, I get it. We were struggling to come up with something a little bit better in the writer's room. So this is where we kind of left off, where, somebody made a cut somewhere to save 30 seconds that would have really explained this whole thing. Snyder cut. But yeah, it was just, I think my comment previously was, how do you make a good underwater movie? And it was, again, better than I thought it would be.
To be fair, I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
I just think there was too much in the story.
I mean, there were certainly, how many times did Jason Momoa have his shirt off?
Way too many.
It's like he'd dive into the water with it on, but then magically it would just come off. But his pants always stayed on. I like that. Like, I got to take my shirt off before I go swimming, but my jeans are staying on. Like, okie dokie.
You know what movie sucked, though?
What?
Mortal Kombat. I watched that on HBO Max.
You watched the whole thing?
Unfortunately. It started off so well. The beginning of the movie is the best part of the movie, and the end of the movie is the second best part of the movie.
Everybody has been bashing that movie on Twitter lately. I have not seen it yet, so.
God awful.
So I don't need to worry about it, is what you're saying.
No, you can just watch that if it ever comes on TNT. Like, you're not missing anything. Like, we're talking a swing and a miss with 3 on and 2 outs. Like, everything from the beginning of the movie, it was dope. I was like, yo, this is about to be lit. You get to everything after that, you're like, God, like, are you guys trying? And then you get to the very end, the end fight scene, the main end fight scene was pretty dope. Everything else, it was just not even a good movie. It was so awful. I would be so embarrassed to be a part of that movie. And they're already talking about
sequel,
Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, please don't.
They were already talking about it before they ever even released it. Like, that was in the works. It was, we're going to make a fortune off of this 10 series,
God. Well, I know the person that plays the main villain, I'm not a big Mortal Kombat guy as far as like casually playing the game. He's got a 5-year or 5-picture deal. I'm like, you cannot make 5 pictures out of this crap. It's awful. Like, this was terrible.
What was so bad about it? Like,
everything. Like, the script, the story, the action scenes just went CGI on heroin. It was awful. It was an awful.
So now I feel like now I feel like I need to watch it just so I can understand.
It made me want to do everything wrong with like Mortal Kombat. Like, I was gonna totally jack everything off of their site into their YouTube channel.
Should we do that next week? Like, we'll just have a segment where you can call out everything that you didn't like about it, and I'll prepare my list as well.
I can just tell you, like, there was nothing redeeming about that movie. It was like one of the worst movies I've seen. The original was better, and the original, in my opinion, was garbage. And
that's what everybody kept saying, was like, well, I'm going to go watch the absolute horrible piece of crap that was the original because it's still better than this. So yeah, I as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, that's disappointing. But I was never like that super into Mortal Kombat back in the day. Like, I mean, Street Fighter, I think, was more my game. Yeah. It was
Me
like,
too.
Especially in the arcade, or the corner of the pizza store that had arcade machines.
But weren't those great times when you had like?
They were
I would go to
fantastic.
the arcade. I would go to like pizza shops with video games. You put your quarter down and you're like betting the next game.
Yep.
I mean, those were good times.
Yeah.
But,
Now all we got is like Boxcar. That's the best we can do.
What's Galaga? Galaga was never like the game. Like, I would never bet somebody on a game of Galaga.
No, there were, yeah. They have some good games there, but
They have NBA Jam.
yeah, but
I'll give them that.
There's just not enough. It's not enough. That's the problem. And I mean, I get that those games are harder and harder to find.
Well,
but
that's true. Well, I'll tell you what. This is probably going to go into two things. Audi. I think Audi really owes Marvel a debt of gratitude. And just my cursory view of what I see on the road right now, Audi everything. And it's probably, a lot of Audis. S7s, A6s, A8s. It's like everybody's buying an Audi right now. It kind of gives you this whole, the business perspective of the long game, basically. So
you say that Audi owes a debt of gratitude to Marvel, but didn't they pay Marvel to have those vehicles be in all their movies?
Doesn't matter. I guess it's just the brand association, right?
It's part of it, yeah.
Yeah. So, because I know people have probably been sitting around watching a lot of movies. You've got Black Panther with the dope Audis in it. You got everything with dope Audis.
Okay.
We're talking
real quick, since we were just talking about it. The Snyder Cut, Batman's Mercedes-Benz, the CGI Mercedes-Benz.
Doesn't matter. Still dope.
Okay. First off,
I think it's a concept car though, if I remember correctly.
That thing looked ugly.
No, it did not.
It was ugly. It was ugly, dude.
God, I wish we had a soundboard. I'd hear crickets or I need to have a sound of disapproval.
Next time.
I disapprove.
I disapprove.
Dude, that car was...
I saw it and I was like, why did they even put that
wide
shot
body
in
coupe,
the
gull wing
movie?
doors, platinum.
Yeah, that stupid finish, the mirror finish on the outside. Ugh. I'm sorry, that is so gaudy to me, and that is not my style.
If you had that, would you not drive that car if you had it? If somebody gave that car to you, would you not rock it?
Okay, if somebody gave me
and I'm sure it's a V12.
Sure.
Would you not drive a V12?
I'm not
Mercedes?
saying I wouldn't drive it. I'm saying I would not spend money. I would not choose that as my vehicle if you said
okay.
If you said
you wouldn't purchase it.
Right.
You got let's say 800 you would choose a McLaren over that car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a concept. I don't remember where I read that. It was a Mercedes concept.
I'm sure it is, but so I guess my point is to kind of compare that to what Audi did, where they had their actual cars featured in these. When the R8 showed up in the first Avengers movie at the end.
That was dope.
Yeah. I mean, that was...
You can go out and be Tony Stark, right?
Right. And that was that was the physical car was there. This thing with Mercedes, it was just hey, someday you'll never drive this because we ain't going to build that shit. I mean, that's what concept cars essentially are these days. It's basically look at this shit you're never going to get to own. And I know that it leads to stuff down the road. It's always made me laugh when... And that whole thing, I just didn't get it. It was so weird to me.
I totally think it's about playing the long game, and I think companies they've lost the ability to do that in a meaningful manner.
Well, I think part of it, and maybe this is just me, but as a consumer, I feel like I'm pretty quick to spot the pretty obvious ad placements.
Right.
It's one of my least favorite things that they do on network television is when they have cars featured in there and they have a 15-second segment where it's all about the features of the car, and it's somebody using the hands-free, call home, or whatever, or, look at the inside of this thing. Is it a spaceship? No, it's just my new Ford Taurus. I cannot it's worse than those freaking Chevy Real People commercials.
Yeah.
I would rather be subjected to 24 hours nonstop of that than having to watch these freaking people try to shoehorn. I mean, it's like Wayne's World, it's Pepsi, the choice of a new generation. I mean, like, that's where we are with this stuff. They've gotten so lazy about it that to some degree it doesn't have that same impact that it did when you just see it. Like the R8, to some degree, I knew, right? You know that Audi paid for that. But at the same time, you went, that makes sense because, yeah, Tony Stark's driving the freaking coolest car around.
Right.
Like, he's got the first one.
But they were so subtle about it. It wasn't like the interior shots. It was like the angles of the vehicle. It was the...
He rolled up in it, and then he pulled up, and that was pretty much it. It was just like, did you see that? Did you see that car? And then you're going home, you're like, go, what was that car? I want to see the R8. You know, like, that's what that was. That was really well done. And... so, yeah, I mean, like, kudos to Audi and kudos to Marvel because they obviously figured out how to market high-end German vehicles to Americans.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, like, it just kind of cements my belief that my next luxury car might be a German car because they do tech better currently, which is weird. I would think that Lexus and Infiniti would figure that out, but they haven't. The Genesis is a nice car, but probably might be buying Audis in the Powell household. Yeah, but I think they definitely owe that to Marvel. And I kind of, like, I started seeing it more and more. Like, they're subtly putting more cars and vehicles in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm like, this is not the first time I've seen this. Yeah. So let me play it back.
See, right? And that was another one where I felt like, for the most part, pretty decent job of product placement, you know? Right. And that's the thing where it's not like I'm sitting here going, I don't want to see a single logo of something, you know, in here because it's completely like, no, but at the same time, like, don't shoehorn it in such an awkward way where it's like, well, we cut these other 5 minutes because we had to get our product placements in, you know? I mean, jeez.
I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think that it shows probably there is a good blend of the social aspect of buying, right? So when you design a website, you want to put in social proof and, you know, things that kind of validate your product or service. So,
right, like the number of times something's been downloaded.
Yeah.
Even if that number is not accurate.
Well, you know, that's only an E area, but you know. On the flip side, you have technology go to crap like Tesla. And the thing I get confused about with them is they're fanboys. They deny the facts and reality of, no, this is probably not safe. So the car crash in Texas, the driver was in the passenger seat. There was somebody in the back seat. Why is that a good idea? Like, and
how is the passenger seat any more comfortable than the driver's seat?
I don't know.
Now, if you were both in the passenger seat,
there's a whole nother
right. Because on the driver's side, you got the steering wheel to deal with. I understand complications, but come on, like,
here's a whole other problem. I just think that it's I don't know. I don't want to, like, I know that Elon Musk is going to be the host of SNL. And I believe it's May. But so I'm not trying to, like, attack him. I just think that as far as technology goes, there are responsible things you should do with your tech. There are responsible messages you should deliver to your consumers. I would use Tesla as an example of doing the exact opposite of that. But you have to take, you know, you have to own the accountability of when things go south. I just don't think they've done a good job of that.
Well, part of it, I think, is because in a lot of cases, owning accountability equals liability, right, in this country. And so if they start admitting that it's kind of like, well, maybe this feature that we built in the car isn't so great because people keep feeling like this is something they can do, that somebody goes, well, they obviously knew about this at some point and made the decision to put it in there, so let's sue the pants off of them because, you know, Jimmy decided to get in the passenger seat while he plowed into a, you know, oncoming tanker truck. I don't even know.
Or Jimmy was in the trunk.
I mean, seriously, like, this is the... Look, I love for us to be at a point where we had self-driving cars that just took care of it and you could just chill. So it's basically like riding on your own private train, right? Like, yeah, that'd be great. We're not there yet, folks. Like, these are safety features in case something happens, right? This is not designed to be like, but the problem is that, like you're saying, Tesla doesn't come out and say, this is not a replacement for a physical driver in the seat. Why should the car be able to operate without, I mean, like, cars have sensors, right? My car freaks out when I put something that's a little too heavy in the passenger seat, but don't have the seatbelt buckled, right? Because of the airbag. You're telling me that my Tesla can't tell whether or not my ass is in my seat? You're telling me that the auto drive function doesn't have a thing that goes, oh, there's nobody in the driver's seat anymore. I should pull over.
Right. I should stop. I should not be able to. The car shouldn't be able to activate. And I again, I'm not trying to rain. I'm not trying to rain on the guy. I just think it's very irresponsible. I think that the disassociation consumers have to what they purchase and what have you just blows my mind. You know, what services they use, like for example, TikTok. They're getting investigated again, and how they take the data from or they're using the data for minors. Mm-hmm. It's probably no different than Facebook being pissed at Apple because they feel like Apple is hindering their business model by caring about consumer privacy. Right. We were doing something on Sunday, and we were shopping. We were at a TJ Maxx Home Goods or something, just like browsing around and stuff. Bro, I kid you not, by the time we got home, my wife's like, look at my phone. And every ad on Facebook were things we were talking about in the TJ Maxx Home Goods. And I'm like, I don't know how else to tell you this. Delete that app off your phone. Like, I just don't know how else to tell you. So yeah, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and the TikTok thing, I feel like that was from the get-go. It was kind of like, hey guys, do you see what you're giving away in terms of your data privacy rights in order to download this app? And I've never once, like, I guess in some sense, thank God I'm old enough that I didn't have to worry about, like, keeping up with that stuff. Like, Snapchat was pretty much the last faddy, not fatty, thing that I really, like, kind of, and that, even then, like, I was in it way late, and I'm probably one of the few people who still has Snapchat on his phone. But it's basically just me and Christy sending pictures of our dogs back and forth to each other. So yeah, I don't know, man. That I do believe, right, on one hand, like, the consumer needs to be responsible for their own decisions in this stuff. You know, I think when it comes to data privacy, there's probably not enough education that's being done to.
Please tell me more.
Okay. Since you asked so nicely. Well, I just think we live in a world where accepting the terms of service, right, or the user agreement without reading it all the way through is
the norm.
Yeah. Do you read the terms of service before you agree? All the way through, every word?
No.
Right.
But I also don't. Okay. Yeah, I don't have
I think it's unfortunate that we've gotten to a point where it seems like in order to have an honest understanding of what we are agreeing to, we'd have to have a law degree or pay a law firm to review it for us, right? I mean, like, should you have to enter into a legally binding contract just to be able to download an application for your phone? Like a game or, you know, like a social media app? That seems kind of crazy.
Well, it's no different than the people that are I guess there's a user that had like $25,000 worth of content they bought from iTunes or Apple, which is a lot.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and they don't own it.
You have a problem, friend. Like,
yeah, like the surface layer is like, that's a lot. The layer next, right below that
is that the person doesn't actually own any of that.
You don't own it,
right?
So I guess they're in the process of trying to sue Apple
because they felt like when they were purchasing it, that was not a licensing agreement where they're licensing the rights to play it on their own, but rather I'm purchasing this. And I mean, granted, it's an interesting case when it comes to the digital realm, right? Because there was a whole thing that came up with VHS tapes back in the days of Blockbuster and family rental stores, right? Because those VHS tapes were $200-$300 a piece. Nobody could really afford them, and so the rental stores would buy them and then rent them out. And the movie not movie theater companies, but the production companies sued and said, you can't redistribute that. That's our protected work. And the Supreme Court said, no, they bought it. Now they can do whatever they want with it. Once you've sold that copy of it to them, they are allowed to then rent that out because that is their personal property. You don't own the rights to that specific, like they can't redistribute it, like reproduce it, but they can let other people borrow it for a fee.
Yeah.
But that's basically, it's basically the same thing that you're doing there at iTunes. Like you're borrowing it. You're paying a fee to borrow it indefinitely. I mean, but like Spotify, right? Like I had to explain this to my kid because she's like, "Do you have every song?" And I'm like, "No, I have Spotify." And she was, "Does Spotify have every song?" I was like, "No, but they have a lot of music that's available." And what we basically do is we pay a fee every month in order to be able to access all of the songs that they have so that wherever we are, we can play the music that we want to. But, like if we stopped paying for our Spotify account, we wouldn't have any of this music available to us anymore. We'd have to go find it somewhere else.
Like Pandora. I know that Spotify is raising their prices again.
It's like $1.
$1?
Yeah. The family plan is going from $14.99 a month to $15.99 a month.
That's not bad.
No, it's nothing. I love Spotify.
I like Pandora better.
I know.
Like I just
the family plan on Spotify is what got me. Like being able to have different profiles that are all managed under one.
Right.
I can have a separate one for my daughter so that to some degree I can kind of filter out all of the music that she likes to listen to from the recommendations and everything that I end up with, although it's pretty much a lost cause at this point. Mostly because I like all of the music that she listens to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good to know.
A lot of Kelly Clarkson and Pink.
I like Pink a little bit.
Just jamming out to some Taylor Swift on the way home today.
Hard pass.
T-Swift, baby.
Don't they call her Tay-Tay? Isn't her like her...
I don't know.
Yeah. I heard the Rock refer to her as Tay-Tay. I'm like,
sure.
Right.
I mean, he would know.
Yeah. So
he's got a daughter.
Yeah. That's true. So aside from all that, two things I want to talk about. One, how's your Mac Mini?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask both questions. Okay.
Okay. And secondly, let's talk about Riverside.fm.
Okay. Mac Mini is great. I love it. So I got the exact same setup that you did. So the 16 gigs, 256 SSD. I've got a separate 2 terabyte SSD. Today was spent doing some fun things, basically moving all of my data from my old backup hard drives to my new SSD so that I can actually access it much more quickly.
That's cool.
The external hard drive that I had that had crapped out on me before and that I was having trouble accessing. So I plugged it up to my Mac Mini today, and I'm trying to go through the same process because it won't mount. And I pull up the list of volumes, that are under disk utility, and it says that the data type is Microsoft Basic Data. And I'm like, how the ever-loving F. This thing has not been connected to a Windows machine, and I don't even know how long. And you're telling me that somehow between the time I last had this connected to my Mac laptop and plugging it in here, that the data structure got changed to Microsoft Basic Data. So then I'm going into this whole thing of like looking, how do I change the data structure without losing all of my data, right?
Right.
And I'm finding this, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember I was like, okay, well, before I go through all of this, maybe it would be easier to just plug it into my Windows machine and get the data off of it that way, right? Through the Windows machine, and then I'll figure out how I move it over here later. But just get it off of there so I don't have to worry about this. And let's just see if this like Microsoft Basic Data thing is even going to... I plug it in and it works fine. Like Windows is like, yeah, we know what this is. It's Microsoft Basic Data. We got this. And I'm like, are you... Okay. So I'm like, great. I'll take care of this later. So I eject it. I come over here. I plug it in. And it works on here.
Wow.
So I have no idea. Basically, plugging it into a Windows machine said, "Oh wait, I'm not Windows formatted. I'll go back to being Mac formatted." I don't even know. I didn't even bother to look at it to see if like the data type had changed. After it started working, I just started copying stuff off of it. Just like, oh my god,
I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I'm out of here, dude.
Get me away from these freaking. I mean, look, I love my Western Digital. Right, that's who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Western Digital,
they sell Jeeps, too.
Yeah, Jeeps. The little Passport external hard drives, they were great.
Right.
Like I have a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte, but they're too slow is the real issue. And then this whole like disconnecting, not being able to, mount, like I was just, you know what, guys, I'm done.
We're breaking up.
Yeah, seriously.
That's funny. No, I that's cool. So, have you noticed a lot of speed improvements? I'm like,
oh yeah. I mean, so I'm trying to think. I mean, everything is faster. Like my MacBook Pro, late 2012, I think it was, or late 2013. So it's getting up there in age, and I had a lot of crap piled up on it. I need to go through and just kind of clean it all up, but it was having a hard time here recently. It was struggling through, copying and pasting audio tracks from, the raw recording file into a template. Would take a couple of minutes here and there, and now it's like, exporting would take, I mean, if I was doing a full episode, it would probably take like audio only maybe 4 or 5 minutes before, maybe a little less. And now it's maybe 10 seconds.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah. I mean, it's lightning fast. It boots up really quick. I've got the extra wide monitor. It's not the curved and it's only the 29-inch, but I love the extra space that I have on it. Like what I basically got now is I've got Riverside set up on 2/3, and I've got our, show prep dock is set up on the other third. That's a pretty comfortable arrangement. The one thing I had to get used to was whatever I'm using, if I need to use like the file, the menu at the top,
right?
Whatever window it is that I need to use that for has to be on the left. Because if you're going all the way from the right to go up to the left and then back over to the right, like it's just too much to move the mouse. Yeah, it's not efficient enough. And so I had to
keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, but some things, some of the programs that I have, they don't have keyboard shortcuts for certain things.
Okay. I respect
it's a little frustrating. Audacity is one of them. GIMP, I got really good with the GIMP keyboard shortcuts because I hate their menu. Great program. Like I love all of the stuff that you can do in GIMP, but I just the user interface for like selecting the tools has never been my favorite. So
yeah, that's
I was
true.
just like Shift S scale.
Well, that's dope. I mean, I'm glad you like it. I still love mine. It's like it's night and day. I will say that this is not a commercial, but Riverside.fm really, 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 really enjoy the platform.
And I'll say it's a piece of garbage. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I was trying to be like the balance, But no, it's been really good to work with so far. I mean, I have one minor complaint that's like 5 minutes.
What's that?
Which is just a sound effects thing. So as you know, some of you know, we have music at the beginning, we have our intro and outro music, we have topic, change kind of introductions and stuff like that. And I like to do little sound effects every now and then because I think I'm creative. And I spent a good chunk of the day today trying to figure out how I could pipe those in on a separate channel into Riverside. But I, for whatever reason, was just like not able to quite put it together. I think it's just a matter of not having quite the right hardware setup that I need. Right. I have some ideas on how I can probably fix it going forward, but we'll see.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's pretty dope. The only thing I would say that kind of solidified my opinion is I looked at the competitors.
Yeah.
Like Welder and Squadcast, their subscriptions are like, one's twice as much, the other one's 2 and some change much more than what we're currently paying. But so if you're trying to do remote podcasting, I would really recommend it. And like that's competitively with the pricing and the features, I think it's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking to add video, because I love the fact that you get 2 separate video feeds along with separate audio. So you can basically do whatever you want. If you do screen sharing that has audio, which is where I'm running into my headache for the moment, as long as you're sharing a tab within Chrome, you can record the audio and do a separate, video capture on that. We were running into some issues with quality on Andre's end, but I think that was more just like a computer configuration sort of deal on trying to make sure that we had the highest quality video output. So once we were able to get that cleared up, that was really the big one. I love the fact that it's easy enough to bring guests in. We had Tony join us last week, which was awesome. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, I highly recommend you go check it out. Just some really interesting viewpoints. It's always nice to have somebody else. I'm sure, our fans even probably get tired of just hearing our, same viewpoints over and over again. So I thought, it was really nice having somebody else come on, and Tony definitely brought, his own perspective and had some really good conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's great. And I think that, we keep talking about building your own platform. I want to give a shout out to Chris because, well, I don't know if it's really a shout out. It's something. Like, I'm trying to be nice. That's all I got. So we've, if you've noticed, our video from last week was a lot different from the one prior to. A lot of that's a combination of Riverside and also DaVinci Resolve. And, Chris and I were talking, outside of these podcasts, and I'm like, dude, it's cool to learn stuff, so being in the spot where we were at and having the opportunity to learn a new skill was kind of dope. It's super, it's one of the things I enjoy about being like an adult. It's like, you can always go learn something else. And Chris in his own way, being very encouraged. It's like, dude, to paraphrase, you write software, you can probably figure out like a video editing program. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. But it was also to help my boy out because I'm like, dude, we're stacking up episodes. Yeah, we gotta make this work. So it's, as you're building your platform, if it's just you solo, map it all out, figure out what that looks like. If it's you and somebody else, figure out how you guys can complement each other and make each other, better and help the process along, which is, I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not as complicated as you may think it is. It's just a matter of trying and putting the work in, the effort in. So, what we did that was a little bit different. We took an older episode and I, used that as a sample for DaVinci, watched a metric ton of YouTube videos and kind of got a feel for it. And our progress and our end product will continue to get better going forward. But the big gap that we were having was, how do we make the videos side by side so you can see our reaction, so we can add guests, improve the quality, there's a lot of things that we wanted to do, but we just weren't able to do it with Zoom. So Riverside, a good foundational block in our platform. DaVinci Resolve, a good addition to our toolbox. So we're super excited about that also.
Yeah, and I think I look at it a lot like the way that things kind of worked with the audio side, right? When we first started out, the first episode, we weren't even recording when we first started talking. We didn't have an intro or an outro. We had no, nothing, essentially. It was just us talking for an hour. And then each time we figured out, okay, hey, we'll put some music in. We'll do some, we'll adjust this. Even the quality of the audio recordings got better because we upgraded, our process. I found out how to use the tool that I was using. And then we upgraded equipment so that we could try and get even better there. And
Right.
I think each step along the way, it's been exciting because I feel like we've taken the time to figure out, okay, what is the right next avenue for us to take, right? Getting ourselves started on the audio side where, at least for us initially, that was kind of a comfort area, it was something I felt really comfortable being able to do. We were able to do probably more than if we'd started with video,
Right.
Now we're at the point where we have a lot of this foundation and it's figuring out how do we sprinkle this video stuff in on top of it to make it even better. And, it has been exciting watching the show kind of evolve, over the last year and so. And, especially now, hopefully going forward, we're looking to have more and more guests. So I think, and that's one of the things I'm really excited about, is just continuing to kind of broaden our perspectives, be able to bring in other people to kind of share their opinions, and just continue to kind of drive these conversations that we have, because I enjoy it. I'm sure somebody else does too.
Yeah, it's I can't say it enough. I think it's great to be able to talk to your friends and family, and I always call it my circle, right? So I have Chris and two other guys that they literally probably all hear the same conversation, and by the end of the week or the end of the conversations, depending on the severity, how many people I talk to, or who answers the phone first before 8 o'clock in the morning, because I get up early. So I get up way too early, so it's not normal. So if you answer the phone at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm calling, it's like, oh crap, it must be pretty bad.
And Andre knows not to call me at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's like, Chris is still sleeping.
7, it's a stretch. 8 is like, all right, it's probably not that bad. So, and it's not that my life is in peril. It's just a matter of, have the right circle, then go to your friends and family, and then you can have the conversation with other people, because you've kind of tested your hypothesis of how you feel about something, and people can help you to make the right next steps. And I think it's going to be great and awesome when we get more people that, are friends, and we have mutual friends, and we have people other people that we both may not know, and only one of us knows them. So
I can't wait to have somebody on here that neither of us knows.
That'll be awesome.
That'll be weird how that happened.
I know. Like, we know nothing about you. So you got to fill us in.
We don't even know we're having you on here.
Yeah. So we're really glad that everybody joined us today. We hope that you guys like what you're hearing and now what you're seeing. You can always check us out on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. And for the adventurous people out there in the group, on our website, the Chris and Andre Show.com. No, it's actually, it's Chris. What is it?
It's ChrisandAndreShow.com.
Oh, at ChrisandAndreShow.com. We have our RSS feed up there. You can always find out more. We haven't been writing a lot on our blog lately, but you can find every episode on ChrisandAndreShow.com. You can always email us at the ChrisandAndreShow at gmail.com. We're on Twitter at Chris and Andre, Facebook at Chris and Andre. They don't really add at Facebook, do they?
No, Facebook doesn't add anymore. We're just the Chris and Andre Show on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. Look for the Chris and Andre Show on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, though, because I hate posting on Facebook.
But we're always going to keep having these conversations, whether it's for a wide or small audience, because we're best friends, and it helps me to reset every week. So that's good for my own mental health and well-being. I'm sure my wife appreciates it, and my daughter. So, and they don't have to hear some of these conversations. Like, I get really passionate about some things. So, yeah, like if you think
I'm just
these
thinking
are
about
the
the times you've called, and it's just like we're on the phone for like 45 minutes, and I get off, and Christy's like, "So what was that about?" Like, you guys are really talking there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, such is life. I think it's super. I was talking to I think my sister. Yeah, it was my sister, and I was telling her, like, yeah, Tony did a great job. It's awesome to have him on the show. And I just keep reiterating with people, it's cool. I know that women talk more than guys do, right? The things that we guys typically talk about are super superficial, like beyond superficial. And we could probably help each other to be better people. And it's not like be a better man. No, that's true, but be a better person in general. And a lot of times I find myself, I don't know about other people, struggling with like those conversations. So I find it super helpful to speak to people and push back on things where I may miss something.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. But as always, I'm Andre.
And I'm Dwight Schrute.
You're such an idiot. And we'll talk to you next time.